everyone, and welcome back to my channel True Crime and Trials, where I discuss true crime and trials. My name's Lindsay, and yes, it's another Durst trial. Witness, I'm a bit behind, so I'm trying to catch up. It gets a bit much just sitting and covering that for hours, so I took a bit of a break, but I'll do my best to try and catch up. I'm trying to do them in small chunks because a lot of these witnesses that went to medical school with Kathy, a lot of it is the same questions over and over and over. Sometimes you get a bit more information that you haven't heard before, but 9 times out of 10 it is the same questions, the ones about cocaine, the ones about calling the dean. And I was getting to the point of where if I heard any of those words again, I was going to punch myself in the head. It was just driving me nuts, so I just needed to take a break. So I'm back with the next witness, which is Dr. Stephen Safyer. Now, he is the CEO and president of the Albert Einstein Medical School. So basically, he was in charge. He isn't anymore, but he is still a doctor. So he started medical school in 1982, which is the same year Kathy was there, and he of course knew her. They were all quite close, and he says Kathy was smart, totally focused on becoming a doctor, and very excited. So as you can hear that, you know, they all pretty much say the same about her. Says Kathy's reputation was that people trusted her. He had never heard that Kathy was flunking out of medical school, and he believes that she seemed competent and focused on becoming an excellent doctor. He knew who the Dursts were, but he didn't know Bob, although he did meet him 3 or 4 times. He did try to befriend Bob, but that was the type of person Stephen was. He liked to make friends. We move on to the inevitable question about calling in sick to a rotation, and Stephen says it almost never happened, and he said you would have to be extremely sick not to turn in. He says that if you were calling sick, you would call the rotation that you were due on that day. He doesn't believe anyone would call the dean, and he has never heard of anyone doing that. So we know what's going to come up in cross-examination. He doesn't believe that Kathy would have called the dean, and this is based on a hypothetical question Mr. Lewin put forward. And a one-day absence wouldn't have been reported to the dean. But as much as they all say that, they don't know if Kathy would have actually done that. And I think the defence's point is, they have proof of how, the communications Kathy had with the deans. So could she? Possibly. But a lot of these witnesses do say that that's just not what you would have done. He agrees that someone that was experiencing domestic violence, it would affect their performance at medical school, and he says it would be difficult to overcome. He knows nothing about Kathy's drug use. He never observed Kathy using and only ever heard about it through the media. He heard about Kathy's disappearance from other classmates, and he says Kathy would not have voluntarily abandoned her life a few months before she was due to become a doctor. Now, that is the one piece of information that makes absolute sense. She was focused. She'd got so far. So why anyone would give up at the final hurdle when she'd gone through so much and still managed to get through medical school to the point she was on the verge of graduating just doesn't make any sense. Why would she just leave? So the cross-examination. And instantly DeGuerin has managed to piss this witness off from the get-go by picking at the word probably that Stephen said in his direct examination with regards to who Kathy would have rung to call in. So this is about half an hour's worth of testimony about picking of the word probably. This is how the defence go. It's tedious, to say the least. So now he asked him about someone called Jean Cook, who Stephen says he doesn't know, but then after a bit of memory jogging, he remembers his name, but he doesn't know what type of relationship Kathy had with him. And why would they? So in a phone call interview that Stephen had with Mr. Lewin in 2015, which he does not remember, and he stands by this throughout his testimony that he cannot remember. He had said that she probably called whatever the equivalent of the Dean of Students was. So this cross-examination isn't going well at all. The witness is defensive. De Guerin is just picking and picking and picking. Stephen can't remember everything, but then De Guerin is going over transcriptions from interviews and can find things they did actually say, which is pretty normal in a trial. But it's like two children. A lot of these testimonies just get beyond ridiculous to the point where you just sat there like that and you're just listening to back and forth all the time. And that's what I mean by you're not getting any new information, because De Guerin likes to constantly go over the same thing and he won't let go. So none of the letters that Cathy got from John Cook or any of the other deans were shown to Stephen prior to today. And Stephen doesn't agree with if he had seen all the notes about Cathy struggling and not attending, etc., he would have changed his mind about whether Cathy was serious about medical school. He is dead set on the fact that from what he saw and the interactions he had with Cathy at medical school, and they would know, they were there, that she was dead serious about becoming a doctor. So no matter how much evidence and notes and everything that De Guerin shows him about her attendance, it's not changing his mind. So De Guerin does finally give up because he's definitely not going to get the answers he wants, and Stephen really doesn't want to give definitive answers because he's not 100% on any of it. Doesn't remember a lot of the people De Guerin keeps going on about. So he's not going to say yes or no when he's not entirely sure, and he's well within his rights to. But there is a lot of, Judge, he's argumentative, he's not answering the question, blah, blah, blah. And even the judge has had enough, he's up for a break. So the redirect. He's not changing his opinion of what he said earlier, that he finds it incomprehensible that Cathy would call the dean and not the rotation she was on that day. So now Mr. Lewin shows Stephen another evaluation, but this time it's a more positive one. It's not about her lack of attendance. It's not all about her not showing up. And it says, Miss Durst is a very pleasant student who displayed keen interest in the subject, although she missed several sessions. She has a fair grasp of the background basic sciences and has sufficient clinical knowledge to be able to arrive at a logical conclusion. She is fairly quick in picking up radiological abnormalities and is a keen observer. She participates actively in group discussions and is eager to do a good job. And Stephen agrees that this is not an assessment consistent with a failing student. So as much as you can show the shitty ones, you've got to balance it out with the good ones. So in his years in his job as CEO and everything, he shows he has had employees come to him due to problems with domestic violence, and he says generally they are ashamed to say what's happening to them. And now Mr. Lewin shows Stephen that Cathy passed her surgery rotation, and the evaluation reads, Miss Kathleen Durst has fully satisfied the requirements for the third-year surgical clerkship, so she wasn't doing as bad as De Guerin is liking to make her out. She began the clerkship in March 1981 and was doing well until personal reasons interrupted it. She subsequently demonstrated good knowledge in a written examination, and department is satisfied that Miss Durst has completed the requirements for the clerkship. There's not one student that wouldn't have called their rotation if they weren't going to be able to be in. So see what I mean? And this is the constant line of questioning with every one of these witnesses, and it's just, do you know what I mean? So I will be back with more with the next witness, and I'm pretty sure you know what's coming with that one. So until then, Bye for now.